with the PGMOL, with VAR. They really are at the end of the tether, and they have been on the end of some really poor decision making this season.
Man United lose all the time. You can't be on every show, and they lose regularly.
Yeah. This is I'd say a 9 life lost kind of situation. This is a big one. So.
Hello and welcome back to Monday Vibes. We are back to dissect the latest round of Premier League fixtures. I've got Michael McCubbin and Henry Hill alongside me. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Yeah, not too bad, Diggs. We all went out and celebrated.
We did.
You went on your work stag this weekend, not your proper stag, just your work
Just
one.
doing two. I'm very greedy.
You are very greedy. But yeah, we had a great time, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah,
organised by yourselves?
Wow.
Yeah.
You deserve the best, Doogie.
Absolutely.
And,
that's
why we did Lawn Bowls.
Bowls was good, actually. If you live in South London, go check it out on Peckham Rye. I thought Bowls was potentially my highlight of the day. I did actually love it.
Yeah.
It was very good fun.
It was good. It was good.
And then we watched Spurs Liverpool, which we'll be talking about in just a sec. And then we did a bit of karaoke with the karaoke king himself.
You
Mike
are the karaoke king. You are the karaoke king.
An absolute star of Mike. But yeah, let's talk about the game that we watched in the pub through sort of beer goggles. Spurs beating Liverpool 2-1 at home, but that really wasn't the story, McCubbs, because this was a game filled with controversy.
Yeah, it was, and knowing Liverpool fans feel like I think they're at the end of their tether actually with kind of refereeing decisions, with the PGMOL, with VAR. They really are at the end of the tether, and they have been on the end of some really poor decision making this season. I've said it already on Team Talk. There is not an agenda. I don't think there is a conspiracy. But lots of fans genuinely do think that now because there's just been so many of these decisions. The first one, the Curtis Jones red card, which I don't actually have a big problem with. I think we were saying it before. I think if I was the referee, I probably would have just about given him the benefit of the doubt. Nevertheless, it's still dangerous. It's still out of control. I know he gets onto the ball first and he rolls over it, but nevertheless, if that ends up with an ankle break, then I think most people would give a red. And it shouldn't be determined on what the outcome is for the player on the receiving end of it. So I think that's fine. I think some referees give it, some don't. It's very subjective.
Do you agree with the image him being showed off the bat?
The still image.
Yeah, I don't think the stick. Yeah, I think as a matter of principle, a freeze frame should not be what a referee views for sure. But I think if he sees that in real time, still, I think he probably still gives it. It's still pretty. It's still fairly dangerous. It's still almost at his shin, isn't it?
Quite reckless.
It's a bit out of control. It's not. It's clearly not his intention to do that. But nevertheless, it's still. Yeah, he's still out of control there. So I don't mind that. I can see arguments for why it shouldn't be given as well because it's on the line. It's on the line in terms of where it comes in, and then of course. The big one was Luis Diaz's goal. What a goal as well! Such a good finish. It's no surprise that it was there was an apology afterwards. It's such a monumental mess up. Then obviously reports of the VAR team having been officiating in the UAE just on Thursday, I believe it was, came out after that. Again. Cue conspiracy theories about UAE a decision going in favour of the UAE owned club and everything else, but that being Man City, of course, Liverpool title rivals who lost earlier in the day. But let's not give any credence to that. But nevertheless, there was conversations about should a VAR team be back in the, officiating a huge Premier League game just 2 days after officiating a long way away, jet lag, etc. So that kind of adds to the whole furore of it. But nevertheless, it's such a bad oversight. It's such a bad oversight to not draw the lines, for the protocol just to not be followed in any way. And I just think with Howard Webb now in charge, I think things are going in the right direction. I think the fact that you've had what's it called? Not Ref Watch,
whatever, something along those lines. Which is published on Sky and TNT.
Yeah, that stuff is great. I think it's good that there is someone in charge now who clearly wants there to be more accountability and more explanations for certain things. But there's only so many major mistakes like this that can be made, and so many apologies that can be made before it's like, well, they just have to stop completely. Like if this were to happen again, then yeah, I think it takes away so much credibility from the VAR system, and fans are already so unconfident in the system that I think it's slightly worrying. It's been 4 seasons now that we've had VAR in full effect. There's always some controversy around it. There was handballs, there was other various other things, and the start of the season has been pretty poor as well. I don't know what you boys think.
I mean, Henry, are you losing faith in the system? What do you make?
No, I never liked it anyway. I mean, the whole point of it was it's meant to stop debates like this, and we still debate about decisions and mistakes that I've made. I'd rather just go back to basic human on-field error and subjective refereeing. I think football was fine in that place. If this had just been a missed offside rule, obviously we'd been annoyed about it, but it did look offside at the very first instant, but it's only when you play it back. I mean, it's unforgivable that wasn't given offside. So I personally think that football was fine without VAR, and I would like to see a world where potentially it's brought back. I think automated,
semi-automated, yeah.
There are various technological advances. Obviously, made a huge difference. Goal line technology, whatnot. But I think we just let the referees get back to just focus on being the on-field referees, and that's when we'll see them get back into it, because it's just their job is grown so much. But I agree, it's annoying because I do want to support them. I do want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But when you make such a obviously dumb error, it's so hard. Now, other loads of errors this weekend too. I mean, that Johan Visser evident penalty. And it's just not even looked at. I don't know. The whole idea of conspiracies is a load of nonsense. It is true. That said, big teams probably do get slight rob of the green on their own turf. That's
always been the case, there, and that's not a VAR thing, is it?
So it's tricky. But for me, I don't know. And I feel sorry for Liverpool because they actually performed really, really
defended really well.
Defended amazingly. Even with 9 men, Spurs didn't really look like they were going to break them down. It's just a free cone goal, isn't it, from Matip at the end, that's got them over the line. Klopp was well in his rights to come out and sort of praise his team and say how proud he was, because if anything that showed us that made me more fearful of Liverpool for the rest of the campaign than excited about Spurs' chances that game.
And there's a huge issue now going into the next couple of weeks, because Gakpo looked like he got a serious knee injury in the act of scoring. Jones is obviously going to be suspended for 3 games unless they review that and decide to drop that suspension down. And Diogo Jota as well being sent off for a second yellow card, the second of which I thought was really quite a clumsy challenge, especially when you're on a yellow, but the first is really unfortunate.
It's not even a foul.
He trips himself up. And not every time that someone falls over on the counter-attack should it be given as a yellow card automatically. So that felt like another error. But in terms of what it means, I mean, Man City, who we're going to get on to, are now just 1 point ahead of Spurs. Liverpool are now in 4th. Arsenal, who got a win, are in 3rd. So actually, which we'll talk about, but I actually really like it when City lose. Not because I've got anything against them as a club, but sometimes it feels almost so robotic. They're just win after win after win. And actually, now they've lost, it really opens up the Premier League table. And it looks like really, really fun compared to a lot of the leagues around Europe at the moment. Well, most of them are looking not too bad, but the Premier League seems to have a sort of 4-way battle at the moment, at least. Aston Villa, Brighton not far behind as well. But I'm totally with you on the fact that you can't really take anything too much from this game in terms of where both sides are at, because obviously it was so unique that it was 11 versus 9 for part of it, 11 versus 10 for most of it. And I thought Matip actually played really, really well. It was one of his best performances I've seen in ages. I think he completed 10 clearances on the day. Van Dijk as well was back to his best. And considering they didn't have Trent at right back as well, maybe in this sort of game actually really suited them having Gomez there, because he's just a little bit more solid defensively than Trent. But it's really intriguing to see where they'll go this season.
I will say on Spurs, and I felt this at the Arsenal game too, their starting 11, great. But their options off the bench, fine against the smaller teams, but against the good teams, we've seen it 2 weeks in a row now. The second Maddison's off, the second Son's off. There's not much else creativity coming. As I said, against 9 men, they relied on a Kulusevski, who's probably the most creative player left on the pitch at that moment. They relied on a cross which has gone in at a freak last second own goal, as I said. Spurs Spurs need to figure out a plan B when Maddison's not around, because they can't just keep having him driving forward, flicking it through, finding Son, who just looks incredible.
Yeah, he really does.
He's so good.
He just looks,
I thought Maddison's pass as well for the first goal, which then finds Richarlison as well before tucks across to Son, was brilliant.
So I just think fair play to Spurs, because they've navigated Arsenal and Liverpool now, which is no mean feat whatsoever, and they will come up against easier sides. That said, like against the big teams, they need to figure out a way to find more goals.
I think with Udogie and Porro there, I think they should be able to get more creativity from out wide. I mean, Porro kind of creates the Matip own goal, doesn't he? But something I really was buoyed by was Richarlison's performance on the left. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. And I know he's always up for against Liverpool, former Everton and everything, and the history there. But I just thought he looked really, really good. It was kind of like the Richarlison of old, when like Richarlison first kind of burst onto the scene at Watford even. And it was like, this guy looks like a really good wide forward. Like he actually looked like that again, which I haven't seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Spurs have got a really favourable run of fixtures now as well. They've got Luton, Fulham and Palace in their next 3 games, which is a great opportunity to sort of cement themselves as top 4 contenders, and especially without Europe this season as well. We do talk about the weaknesses of their squad potentially, but they do have a number of injuries as well. I think Hill, Sessegnon, they're still out. And you back Postecoglou with this mood around the team and the way he's improving players. A bit like Ten Hag last year, got a lot better. Wan-Bissaka got better throughout the season. Dalot had a really good season under him. Like, you back Postecoglou to improve some of those squad players that really haven't been involved that much over the last few years. The likes of Hill, the likes of Sessegnon, the likes of Lo Celso. So things are looking good for Spurs. Right, let's move on to City though, because as we said, this was a bit of a shock defeat. I mean, Henry, Wolves only had 1 shot on target, but Wolves again causing City issues, particularly on the break. Yeah,
absolutely. City weren't great value for a win in this. 0.8 XG to 0.4 for Wolves. I mean, they really did lack creativity. I mean, hardly a big chance in that. The goal they scored is from Julian Alvarez.
It's beautiful though.
Free kick, beautiful goal, but that's not what you're expecting City to be doing. But I don't know. Wolves just look really up for it. They've got Pedro Neto, who looks exceptional.
Amazing.
I think if he keeps this up,
one
he's
of the best players in
definitely
the league so far.
Yeah, he was great before he got that injury, wasn't he? So he's sort of like a little cheat code for Wolves this year, driving down the wing. I think Hwang had a really solid game too, 4 key passes, got that goal as well. So I mean, it's just a really bizarre one. I can't really make heads or tails of it. Like, I think it just showed when City, for all the money spent and all the quality in that squad, when they do miss their big players,
no KDB, no Rodri,
exactly, then other teams can find opportunities. That said, with the likes of Grealish, Doku, whatever, they should still be winning these matches. They should still be, and I think they had 23 shots in total, with only 8 on target. But still, barely. I didn't see Salah have to do a whole lot at the back. Testament has to go to Craig Dawson and Max Kilman. This is their bread and butter of a game, really, isn't it? It's just
Craig Dawson was superb.
It's just balls into the box.
So good.
Yeah, both did 7 clearances.
Ballon Dawson, as Mika Richards calls him.
He's Craig Dawson's one of the most solid centre halves in the division. He's just been great wherever he's been. He's just a no-nonsense. You know what you're going to get from him, and he scores goals as well.
West Brom, West Ham.
I really like him.
He's kind of exclusively played for clubs that employ a low block, deep blocks,
and that begin with W,
and begin with W as well. Yeah,
no, he was good. It was Wolves. I think Wolves deserved it.
I think they were worth the win. I think I know like City edged them on XG, but it's like, if you can limit City to under 1 expected goal, especially from 23 shots, that just shows how well they defended their box. Like, there was just no real quality chances being made, and I know like Dawson put in that great kind of block, kind of got in the way of that ball. Was it dropping to Haaland?
Yeah, I think it was dropping to Haaland, yeah.
There are moments like that which are a bit touch and go, but given where we thought Wolves were going to be at the start of this season, I think there were more than a few of us who would have had them 17th or 18th, and that's understandable given the circumstances surrounding Lopetegui leaving, how bad they looked before he took over last season, even for large parts of last season and the season before. I don't think there was much expectation on Wolves this year, and yet Gary O'Neill seems to have just got them working really, really hard for each other. I think that's it. They're still not a spectacular side, and I think the Neto factor, him being back to his best, is huge, because we kind of discounted that before. We weren't really sure whether Neto was going to ever be the player that he once was again. So that is massive. But I just think, there's just a good feeling. I think we do have to give a lot of praise to Gary O'Neill, because we praised him last season at Bournemouth, but in the back of your mind, it was still like, maybe he has flukes this, like maybe he has. And going to Wolves with such little prep time for the new season, much in the same way that, how he came into Bournemouth last year after Parker's sacking, has not really been given much, in terms of being able to imprint himself on the squad. But maybe that just seems to suit him. Maybe he is just quite a good firefighter, and he can just come in and motivate squads that are a bit flat, and just extract the best performances out of what he's got at his disposal.
I'll tell you who could use Gary O'Neill right now. Bournemouth.
yeah, weirdly
absolutely.
enough,
it's going really badly. We'll come on to that in due course. There was quite a lot of attention put on my tweet on Monday or Tuesday that Man City had a good chance of going invincible and then losing twice in a week. Not my best moment, baby. But my point was not that they will go invincible, that they had as good a chance as a lot of sides, as any side really, since the Invincibles. Probably up there with, one of those United seasons in the late noughties.
Liverpool 1920 as well.
Liverpool 1920 going 27 games unbeaten. I just thought that having, got the Champions League off their back, they maybe put a little bit less focus on the Champions League, more on the Premier League this year. They'd be calmer, and they also defend so well, as a rule. Obviously didn't defend so well on this occasion, particularly for that second goal. They were a little bit all over the place. The first goal is obviously quite unfortunate. But, it's over. The Invincibles is done. The Invincibles live on. They're not winning the quadruple either. But I'd still be very surprised if they didn't win the league. But it is looking more interesting than it did a couple of weeks ago. Right, let's move on to Man United 0, Crystal Palace 1. There'll be comments saying, where's Joe? Man United lose all the time. You can't be on every show, and they lose regularly. This was, their 4th defeat of the Premier League season.
Wow.
A wonderful goal, McCubs, from Joachim Andersen. But again, just United not looking particularly convincing.
Yeah, not looking convincing at all. I wasn't able to watch the full game, and when you watch the highlights, I think United had more than enough chances to win this game.
Johnson
they should have won this game.
Saves,
they should have won this game, but I think against a Palace side which had 7 players injured, against a Palace side that they tore apart at Old Trafford just a few days before in the League Cup. You have to be creating more. Like 1.55 XG at home against a relatively weak Palace team isn't good enough. And I think the general feeling around the ground and around United fans in general, I think is worse following this defeat than following any other defeat this season so far. I think it's the fact that it's the 4th already in 7 games. United now sit 12th. They've only scored 7 goals, which is worse than Wolves and Nottingham Forest. It's just it feels quite bleak at the moment.
Are you starting to have doubts about Ten Hag?
No, I think I think Ten Hag is still clearly the best manager out there for the job. I think you have to take a step back from this situation. He's had a rough start to the season, had a rough summer as well. But
did you have a rough summer?
I think in terms of things away from the pitch, I think in terms of things away from the pitch.
In terms of that. But in terms of the players he managed to get,
in terms of
Mount, Onana, Højlund.
I agree with you,
in terms of the transfer market in general.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying.
Has he had a rough summer?
That's not what I was alluding to.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of the settled, whether the squad was clearly unsettled going into the start of the season.
Unlike anything, there's more than just being a manager at Manchester United. Like, it is just a whole other job in itself. It's just
huge.
You're just every press conference. It's just the scrutiny. It is. I think it's not a case you just get left to your own devices just to manage the squad. Like, so much has to go into it, and I imagine it is relentlessly draining, especially when results aren't going your way.
Yeah, I think he'll probably. He'll always feel pressure to a certain extent, but I think the reality is that he's got enough money in the bank from last season to if this form carries on for another month or two, then yes, he will be under pressure. But I think when you look at how the Glazers have generally treated managers in the past. Like Solskjaer, was able to, I think, have United playing relegation football for a full 6 weeks before he lost his job, including
really not trigger happy at all.
Really damning defeats against Liverpool. When was that? 2 years ago. Mourinho was given a full. Mourinho wasn't even backed in the transfer market, and then was given another 6 months before he lost his job. They're not trigger happy. He's been backed massively, which I think is a sign that the hierarchy clearly believe in his vision. And actually, I do think this performance against Palace, even though the feeling in Old Trafford was that United were just not going to score for a million years, I do think people need to take a bit with a pinch of salt. There are some poor performances out there. Amrabat should not be starting at left back, but that's the injury situation at this moment of time. Højlund needs to be getting better service. There's no creativity. This is the problem as well, especially when Eriksen isn't on the field. There's no creativity from out wide. Pellistri isn't really a starting right winger for a club of Man United's stature. And Lisandro Martinez is a huge miss.
For 3 months now.
Potentially 3 months. He's going to be out. So that sense things are looking bleak. And I mean, even before this latest setback, Lisandro was looking as bad as he has done for United, and I think that's probably because of a fitness thing. Really poor defeat, and now United have some really crucial home games coming up. Galatasaray tomorrow, a Galatasaray side that are unbeaten in all competitions so far this season.
Did have to come back from, was it 2-0 down against Copenhagen?
Yeah. So they've been really impressive. I guess Copenhagen at home as well. You did expect them to win that game, but they'll be super up for it. Then Brentford at home on Saturday. Don't have the best record at Old Trafford, Brentford, but they are still a really tough team to face, and especially
need a win as well.
Especially given their ability on the break, that worries me. And then I think it's Sheffield United away after that. So 3 very winnable games, but United really need to go on a 3-4 game winning run in the Premier League now, because they're falling off the pace. I think already 7 points behind out of the top 4 places. I think 7 teams have scored at least double the amount that United have this year, and the defence isn't looking. That's the thing. I don't even think the attack's the main problem. The defence is a real issue, and actually less so in this game, but just in general, I think the defence against better teams has looked really shaky. Once again, I think Ten Hag's just got a lot of fires to put out at Old Trafford right now.
Fair enough. I mean, Henry, are you in agreement?
I think losing.
Do you think he deserves a bit more flack? Do you think
absolutely
these circumstances come into it?
There are some games though that I don't think, regardless, they're expected to lose, and I think losing at home to Crystal Palace is one of them. So that for me is, other defeats are a bit more forgivable. This is
especially because they didn't up until recently lose at home ever.
Absolutely, this is a big. This is I'd say a 9 life lost kind of situation. This is a big one. So, and as McCubbs just pointed out, they've got some big winnable games. But quickly, just to shout out Crystal Palace, because let's not take away from the facts. They went there with 7 first team guys injured this year. Edouard, who's been their main goal scorer, Elise, Lerma as well, powerhouse in the middle. To come away with a 1-0 victory, first goal in the first half of them this year, I think really they deserve huge credit. And actually, Sam Johnston. What a signing he's been from so far. This isn't the first time that he's been their stand-up player in a game this season. Who's the previous keeper? Gaeta. That whole faff about him wanting to leave in the summer, whatever.
That was a bit messy, wasn't it?
And then they've just got in a younger, better keeper, and there we go. Problem solved for Palace. They've made their transfer policy has gone from being pretty awful, just signing old guys on huge wages, to actually regenerating the squad with young, great additions, and Johnston's part of that. So shout out to Palace, because they've been having a sort of a muddy time at late. So to get 3 huge points away at Manchester United, that's massive for them. I've got no concerns about them at all.
Yeah, that is why I found the Dean Henderson signing in the summer a little bit puzzling, because I just thought Sam Johnston was so good in the second half of last season. It didn't seem to be that necessary a signing, but we'll see how he gets on in the long run. And also, Hodgson, first ever manager in the Premier League era to go 5 games unbeaten.
The legend
Old Trafford
continues.
Really?
Yeah, first ever manager in the Premier League era. So yeah, put some respect on that man's name.
Super right.
Yeah, I think this second stint of Roy Hodgson at Palace has been great so far.
It's gone under the radar for sure. Gone under the radar. You know, it's a club that doesn't necessarily get the credit it deserves when they do get big wins, and this is definitely one of them. And Joachim Andersen as well. What a brilliant goal! Really brilliant goal. I do think he's probably the outstanding centre back outside the big six and Newcastle probably. I do really think he's a very, very special player. Personally, I'm losing a little bit of faith in Ten Hag. If I was a Man United fan, I just don't think they look convincing enough in any game. And it slightly concerns me. I know there are other factors at play. There's injuries, there's the off-field issues, there's the ownership situation. But you'd want to see a bit more coherence, a bit more commitment to a way of playing after 14, 15 months in charge.
Yeah,
so
it feels like United have lost identity in the first half of the season. And whether that's to do with the fact that Casemiro's been playing poorly, whether that's down to individuals, like it's hard to say, isn't it? It's hard to say, but like I do agree. Like United don't. Yeah, if you go back 6 months, there did seem to be something there. There did seem to be some patterns of play with United, whereas this season it hasn't been the case.
Not happening. Right, let's move on to Aston Villa 6, Brighton 1. Who saw this coming? 6 goals conceded by Brighton. Actually watched most of this game prior to the beginning of the Stag. I mean, Brighton had the first chance of the game, I think, to a Estupiñán, who then had a bit of a stinking first half. But the way they collapsed in this game, really, really troubling. And they have had some big defeats under De Zerbi at different points. You conceded a lot of goals against Newcastle and Everton last year. I think also Forest as well. This year they conceded 3 against West Ham in a game they dominated. But this was very straightforward for Villa, to be honest. I thought they played exceptionally well. They were very decisive on the counter-attack. Ollie Watkins, under Unai Emery, just been sensational. That relationship with Moussa Diaby as well, looks like they've been playing together for years. What an addition he's been as well. And this was just an absolute drubbing. It was great to see Jacob Ramsey come off the bench as well, score a great goal. And this is a really, really concerning for a guy myself who said that I think Brighton can get into top 4 contention. You can't concede 6 goals against the top 6 contender away from home. Just a really embarrassing result for Brighton, and I thought it was thoroughly deserved as well. I know people will point to the XG, and Brighton and Aston Villa's finishing was exceptional, but I just thought there were so many mistakes all over the place as well. The back line, so ragged. Mistake for Estupiñán for one of the goals, for an own goal. It was just a really, really bad day at the office. I mean, Henry, if you were De Zerbi, would you be concerned by this, or is this just more of an aberration?
I think it's on the rest of the squad, because we saw other new players coming into the side there. They just need... He's got options in that team, and it may be a wake-up call to some of the guys that have been starting recently, that you're not necessarily... Like, if we're so clanger-prone, as you pointed out, because as you said, they've already been hammered once this season, to go 2 hammerings in the first 8 games isn't great. I know there's so many other things which have been positive, but like they are conceding more goals than last year, and I think that is going to be a big thing for De Zerbi to wonder about, because I think they were so underrated and how solid they were at the back. I know they've lost Colwill, etc. And Steele, was it Steele in goal?
Steele was in goal, yeah.
It just looked poor, in all honesty. Like, I don't know whether Bruyne, if he was injured or whatever this week, but yeah, I think the rest of the squad will look at this and think, wait a minute, it just shows it's so competitive in that squad, and perhaps De Zerbi needs to make some changes. And he's got a tough game midweek now. They go to Marseille, already on the back foot in the Europa League after sort of inexplicably losing to AEK Athens at home. Okay, Greek champions, respect to them, but they still shouldn't be losing that game. And now they go to Marseille, who I know they lost 3-2 to Monaco this weekend, looked a little bit better, got under Gattuso, they'll be up for that game. Big European night at home against an English side, they'll be wanting to prove something. So yeah, it's difficult, but on the other hand, credit where credit's due, Villa were just, as you said, completely rampant. And Ollie Watkins, I think you tweeted it, and it's so true. Like how Nketiah got in over him in the England. Like he's a better striker than Nketiah. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what any Arsenal player says.
I think he's easily the probably top 3 strikers in the league, to be honest, Ollie Watkins at this point. He wasn't even really scoring until this weekend either, but his performances have still been superb even when he's not scoring. He's so essential to that Villa attack. I think the thing is with Brighton, it's just, they're 2 losses in the league this season, unless I'm forgetting one, but it's West Ham and Villa. They just, two very good to counter-attacking teams. I know West Ham were incredibly clinical against them. As were Villa here. They did score 6 after all. But yeah, I think this is probably the first real question mark with De Zerbi, and it goes to show how high the standards are with Brighton now, was that we're kind of question the fact that there are things that make us question whether they'll get top 4 this season are a concern. That's crazy, isn't it? But nevertheless, I think like you say, like you alluded to, Dukes, if there's going to be something that trips them up on their kind of quest to get top 4, it is that they're clearly quite susceptible to really good counter-attacking teams, and that's part and parcel of the style of football that they play. But that is clearly something that De Zerbi is going to want to sort out.
Just quickly, throwing in Jack Hinshelwood, 18-year-old in central midfield for her. I think it was his first Premier League start. I might be wrong on that, but still, that's a tough game. And to go up against a very settled Aston Villa midfield as well. Camara, who's been brilliant recently, Douglas Luiz. I think to go up against those two guys is tough. Like, I know Billy Gilmore passed the ball nicely, but he didn't. They still conceded 6, and he's meant to be the defensive shield. So, that's a very young... Gilmore and Hinshelwood is a very young base of midfield to go up against an experienced side that Villa put out, and I think that was a slight miss sight. Yeah,
quite a lightweight midfield as well. They've got Jude in there, pretty lightweight player. Pascal Gross, amazing technician, but he's not very physically gifted. He's not very quick, is he? Their central mid, and Lallana, they could potentially play in midfield, deep into his 30s now. So that is maybe a slight oversight in squad planning. Let's move on quickly to Bournemouth, Arsenal. Not much to say on this, to be honest. I thought Arsenal were just comprehensively the better side. McCubs, are we slightly concerned by Bournemouth? It's not been a good start to the year at all.
Yeah, I think it is a bit concerning. Like we were saying, Gary O'Neill, they decided to let him go, bring in the kind of shinier kind of candidate in Iraola, and I think we were all fairly supportive of that, given that Bournemouth are, they've made a number of very big signings over the last 6 months. There's clearly they want to start a real project there, and also recruiting a top manager from abroad is it doesn't get the same kind of scrutiny that it probably once did, especially after De Zerbi's success at Brighton, and how good he was at Vallecano. I think we were all expecting. I expected them to really overperform this season and consolidate themselves in mid-table. But they just looked all over the shop against Arsenal. I know it's Arsenal, and these results are not the ones that are going to define their season. But what is it? 3 points from 7 games.
Giving away 2 penalties in this game as well.
Yeah, gave away 2 pens. Yeah, I am slightly concerned for Bournemouth. I think there's only so long you can keep on going when you're in a relegation scrap with the same manager, and I think I don't know. It is a tough one. He's very much this new ownership's guy, so I think they probably will stick by him for a bit longer, because I think it's having invested that much in the squad, having backed him that much. I think it would be a bit embarrassing to let him go after only 2 months of the season.
I mean, they had one of the highest net spends in the entire league in the summer.
Yeah, true.
I mean, probably in Europe, right? But the new signings clearly are not gelling in the way that they would like. Defensively is probably the big issue as well. I think defensively they've looked really, really poor, and last season they kind of got away with it because Solanke was in such good form. The attack in general just got a lot better as the season went on. But they can't really rely on that. Iraola really needs to kind of show what he's about, I think, in the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at some point they just have to do what needs to be done to get points and results. It's all well and good trying to play progressive football and whatnot, but it's just not working at the moment. And the problem with Iraola is he's just got no credit with most Premier League fans. How many Bournemouth fans realistically knew who Iraola was coming in? We obviously watched Rayo Vallecano last year and knew a bit, but realistically not many people will have had a clue about that whatsoever, and that extends to a lot of the squad too, and that's a problem. Players do react to known faces on the touchline, and same to be said with fan bases. Iraola, he has to prove it himself, and that's where I think he could come undone, because the second things start really going wrong, Bournemouth fans will be like, well, who is this guy anyway? where's he come from, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I think people overestimate how much footballers watch football outside of the Premier League or outside of the league they're playing in. Like, I don't think a lot of Premier League players would have heard of De Zerbi, for example, before he arrived. You could tell by a lot of pundits' reaction to his arrival that a lot of people didn't really pay much attention to his work at Sassuolo and Shakhtar before that. Iraola was a virtual unknown on these shores, and I do think it will matter with that fan base. I do think he should be given more time, but this was a really poor display against Arsenal, who actually thrashed them last night at the Vitality as well. I think that was 4-0 as well. So they do like playing there, and Gabriel Jesus played pretty well on the weekend as well. Odegaard looked back on form as well.
Havertz penalty.
Havertz
what do
getting
you
his first
think?
goal.
Yeah.
I really liked the club's or the team's reaction to his penalty. You could tell that they're all really behind him. He has taken probably an undeserving amount of flag. Given he's playing in a different position, all I see is his goals and assist tally. Like it's not really his role now. It
he doesn't help
mental.
that like Granit Xhaka had like an all-time his best ever scoring season last year. I think people just compare it to that, don't they?
Like defensively, he's actually been quite good for Arsenal. His tackle and interception numbers are high, like
very good
4 in this game too. But like even he touched the ball almost half as much as Rice and Odegaard, and it's just he was. The problem you say that he was brought in to be a creative guy, and he's just.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you look at his like progressive carry numbers, and I know Declan Rice's aren't very high either, so I think that might be more of a result of the system. But at the same time, if you're not like one of the most progressive players on the field, then what exactly are you doing as a number 8? Like I don't like it, and that's maybe as much down to Arteta as it is to Havertz. But I think. Yeah, we'll see. Well,
I'm not trying to defend him too much, though. I mean, he's cost £130 million for 2 clubs in 3-4 years, and he hasn't really delivered for either club yet. So he does deserve some scrutiny, but it just feels like it's getting a little bit Maguire-esque, like the amount of scrutiny around him, which I think is sometimes a little unfair.
I hope the penalty is like a get-me-out-of-jail card, but at the same time, I hope he can kick on.
But also, it's still
get him on pens.
It was still a really good penalty. Imagine if he misses that pen. You know what I mean? That's almost
worse.
Actually, giving him that penalty almost is more pressure than he needs. Right. At least he actually did put away a very confident penalty.
Yeah. Be good for my fantasy team if they could decide who is their penalty taker this season as well. I think everyone's. I mean, Saka, Odegaard, Havertz, whatever. But it's not about my fantasy football team. Right. Let's move on to Everton 1, Luton 2. It's all about that. Luton getting their first win of the season. I think deserved as well. I think they were the better side the last weekend against Wolves, and have probably been probably the most impressive newly promoted side, I would say. Yeah,
we've all been going, Burnley are going to kick into gear. By expected points, Luton have been doing fine in many ways. They were on 5 before this weekend, and now they've got the win again. It's
big game against Burnley tomorrow as well.
I think you just get the sense Rob Edwards, whatever happens, is going to be there, and they are playing above themselves. And I think what I liked is if you look at that first goal from Tom Lockyer, where he's just given everything to get to that ball before Ashley Young, and that kind of shows what the spirit in that Luton side. I think they're well aware that no one's backing them to do anything this year, but if they put their bodies on the line, that will kind of help iron out some of the deficiencies in their squad. Yeah, it was again backs to the wall job. Everton had 68% possession. It was 23 shots. Luton still had 9 shots, and I think I really enjoyed the second goal. I thought that was great. I mean, big shout out to Alfie Doty. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about this guy, but
I saw him play against Sunderland in the semi-finals last year, and he has excellent delivery from wide. He's a real threat.
Because we were talking about Ryan Giles coming in, but Doty's assists, 6 key passes, 4 clearances, 2 tackles in this game. From left wing backs, big shout out to him as well.
One to
watch. Morris as well, 7 aerial wins out of 13 contested, drew 3 fouls. That's what you want from your centre forward, scrapping up there in a game when you're lacking possession against another side where these are the kind of games they need to win. I will say Everton, I thought they were fine in principle. Everton, it's the same as we've been seeing a lot of this season. They played very well. They just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. It's just, I don't know. You can't really blame Sean Dyche for that. At the end of the day, some of the headers were shocking in this game, really shocking. I sound like Roy Keane and shocking,
embarrassing.
Yeah, but
it's frustrating for Everton fans because they obviously beat Brentford last weekend, really good win, and they knocked Villa out of the cup. Then you've got Luton at home, who are winless, and McCubbs, they can't go over the line. It's just annoying.
Yeah, it's really annoying. I think Beto, we're still waiting for him to properly kick into gear, aren't we? Him scoring a decent amount is going to be crucial to them staying up. And like you alluded to there, I think Carlton Morris looks excellent actually for Luton. I think he's going to be so important for them as the season goes on. Great finish in this game. But yeah, like I think the results, the last two results have probably bought Dyche a bit more time at Everton, but it's nevertheless, it's still worrying, isn't it? I still can't. But I mean, if they're 19th come December or something, which is, you know, still a possibility. Like, I don't know. Like, I think Everton will always do, you know, they'll have to do something drastic if they're staring relegation in the face once again. Like, they've done it, like, you know, they've done it without fail the last two seasons. They've brought someone new in halfway through the campaign.
Do you not feel, compared to those previous seasons,
they're playing so much better?
They are clearly playing much better. Like,
depends.
By expected goals, I think their differential is
their
the biggest.
XG is actually pretty good. Yeah,
like, they are clearly. I'm so less worried about Everton this year, especially if DCL stays fit. With Beto playing, James Garner looking like a new signing in many ways. Branthwaite really kicking on at centre half next to Tarkowski. Pickford still being Pickford, really. Like, surely.
I know the squad is there. I mean, I don't know. I didn't think James Garner was very good in this game, but. Yeah, like I've always thought their squad is not a relegation squad, but like I don't think that's what I mean. Like, given how poor the bottom of the table is, like Everton shouldn't really be down there, and yet they still are. Like, for sure, like their expected goals numbers do look quite good, but yeah, I've not been overall particularly convinced by them this season. I know the last two results I think have put a shine on things, but. Yeah, I'm not overly convinced.
Right, in honour of ERU, RIP, we're going to do a couple of stories from around Europe. We're actually starting, in the UK. Michael Beale being sacked by Rangers at the weekend after they lost 3-1 to Aberdeen. That's their third league defeat of the season so far. They obviously didn't qualify for the Champions League group stages. They got beaten 7-3 by PSV on aggregate. They've lost to Kilmarnock, Celtic and that Aberdeen defeat. They did beat Betis 1-0 in the Europa League, which is a pretty good result considering. But yeah, with the side 7 points behind Celtic already, they're in third behind Celtic and a surprise team, St Mirren.
God.
Beale's been removed. Stephen Davis has been put in interim charge. Yeah, it didn't really work out, and considering he gambled quite a lot going there, leaving that job at QPR to be fired less than 12 months into your tenure, pretty disappointing.
It's a real shame, because I think at the start of the season we were looking at it going, this could be as close a title race between these two as well. Like, Brendan Rodgers weren't sure how well he'd fit back into that Celtic system. Michael Beale had some time to sort of get his house in order at Rangers.
Knows the club. Yeah,
knows the club. As he's like, they were fine last year when he came in. But from what I understand, like their scouting has just been, he's been let down by their scouting. Obviously lost some big names in that side this summer. Ryan Kent, Alfredo Morelos, Kolach up front, and some of the guys they brought in. I know Seema has been good. They're saying Jack Butland's been really good. But beyond that, some of the new additions have really, Desirs, it was like, I think he was at Lecce. It wasn't even like playing for them really. I mean, it's just, Desirs, it's just been really poor. The squad's taken a step backwards. And I know they got hammered by PSV. I wouldn't read into that too much.
Oh, PSV are a good side.
Rangers, they're quite clearly Europa League level club. Like, that's not a shame.
They've been really good in Europe in the last few years as well. They just haven't really managed to find that consistency in the league. But yeah, Michael Beale removed. It'd be interesting to see who gets that job. Cubs' Lautaro Martinez continues an excellent start to the season. 4 goals against Salernitana.
4 goals in 30 minutes. Yeah, he's superb, isn't he? Really, really good. Such a clinical striker now. 4 goals from 5 shots in this game. Yeah, lovely volley for his second, I think it was.
From the Barella cross,
yeah, he's just great. And I think he has a particularly good record against Salernitana, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think he is the best striker in Italy now, isn't he? He's so good. And I think, I think Inter have done a really good job in terms of keeping him happy over the last few years, because there's plenty of times where like offers could have come in from other clubs and they could have accepted. They could have, they always held out for a plus £100 million fee, didn't they? But I think it's they're really reaping the rewards of him now.
So you think he's better than Osimhen? What do you say?
On current form, yeah. On current form, I kind of forgot about Osimhen in that thing. I was wearing him on my back on the weekend as well. No, Osimhen is the best striker. You're right, but
I don't know. It's pretty tight.
It's tight, yeah.
It's tight, but I mean,
they're different. They're different strikers.
They're different. Yeah,
strikers.
I think Osimhen is still better as a pure number 9. But on current form, yeah, Lautaro is better on current form.
We did a Continental Club rating the best strikers in Europe, actually. We
We
said Lautaro was touching superstar status, and he went and scored 4 times. So,
right on cue.
There.
But yeah, Inter, scored 19 goals, I think, in the league so far. I think only Bayern and Leverkusen have scored more goals in Europe. They're absolutely cooking. They're still level on points with Milan, but the goal difference is vastly different. The level of performance is vastly different as well. I think they look like the strong favourites to win a Scudetto once again. Bellingham, the show continues, Henry.
Yeah, unbelievable. I actually thought Girona were really good in this game. There's a reason they've been, 7 unbeaten. I think 6 wins in a row. Big game for them to try and cement whatever ambitions they have this year at Real Madrid. But it was a pretty typical kind of Champions performance from Madrid. So weathered the storm and then ground them down the other end. But yeah, the Bellingham, I don't know. I don't want to get too excited, but then at the same time, I mean, he's only 20.
Get excited.
He's only 20.
Let's get carried away in English
that
style.
That assist for Hosselu, it was just
beautiful.
Best midfielder in Europe.
Hosselu wasn't even he was just yards behind the man, and they look like they've got a really good link up. Hosselu returned the favour.
Well.
Yeah, he's been good. He's good. Madrid are a much better side when he's in the team. He just offers a bit more as a all-out striker than certainly Rodrigo does when you stick him up there. So yeah, no, I thought Bellingham was just exceptional. He almost scored in the first half, breaking away from Daley Blind. I'd love to have seen that one go in, but yeah, then his volley for his goal in the second half. Really clinical too. Tchouaméni's got ahead as well. So yeah, 3-0. Looks very comfortable on paper. It wasn't. Like, Girona generated 1.6 XG. Really should have stuck the ball in the back of the net. Kepa quietly doing fine this year. So yeah, I mean, I'm just thrilled for Bellingham. It's just another epic performance. And we saw that assist shows another side to his game that we haven't seen necessarily in a Madrid shirt. It's been all about his goals and last minute winners and moments at the moment, but this really showed another just driving display from midfield. So many tackles as well, defensive. It's just all, what a guy.
We're going to win the Euros. Why did I just say that publicly? Anyway, let's move on quickly. Can't have a Critchley curse on that one. Let's move on to Bayern Munich, coming back from 2 goals down against Leipzig to draw 2-2 in a scoreline that myself and Pat, I think, predicted on Continental Club. Bayern now 3rd in the Bundesliga. 2 points behind Leverkusen, 1 point behind Stuttgart 2. Oh, I mean, McCubs, could we finally see them being toppled?
There's a possibility, but it's still early days, isn't it? This is not the first time that Bayern have been 3rd or 4th at this point in the campaign. I think they'll still do it. I think Leverkusen have had an amazing start to the year, but we're yet to see Leverkusen, keep up this level of performance over a full season. Certainly that was the case under Seoane. I know Xabi Alonso has been pretty flawless since coming in there, but still a very young manager with a very young squad. I would expect them to drop off at some point still. But I think it's just the level of competition, which is probably the more worrying thing. Dortmund have started the season probably better than many would have expected. Leipzig are, points-wise are not where they should be, but I think performance-wise are really up there. And yeah, probably should have won this game. Harry Kane had 1 shot all game, and it was a penalty. They didn't let him have a shot from open play. So Leipzig, I think, are a real threat, and yeah, now unbeaten against them in their last 2. Obviously, turned them over in the Super Cup. And Stuttgart have had an inexplicably amazing start to the season as well. Girassi with 10 goals now in the league. The only player who can outscore Kane at the moment in Germany. So yeah, the level of competition is certainly there. It's really, it's been a really, really competitive start to the campaign. I still think they'll do it. Kane has had, I know he was poor in this game, but still scored and has 8 goals already.
Sané's goal's really nice in this as well.
Yeah, Sané's goal superb. Sané's also had a brilliant start to the season, hasn't he? I think this is his best run of form in a Bayern shirt. So that's really, really promising. So yeah, I think they'll probably still be fine, but that first, Lois Openda's goal, great, but like Kim Min-jae should be dealing with that. Like he really should be.
Should
so
be.
that was a bit concerning for me. Clearly, like the defensive issues that were there last year have not been ironed out in the way that certainly I would have thought they would have been by now. So that's, I think that's a little bit of a worry for Bayern, but I'd still back him.
I do feel a little bit sorry for Tuchel in that he asked for a new goalkeeper, didn't get it. He asked for a new centre-back / right-back, didn't get it. Asked for a 6 and didn't get it. Like, how much sympathy do you have for a Bayern Munich manager, given their resources against the rest of the league? But he was slightly let down by the hierarchy, I think, in the market.
But Bayern should not be scrambling on deadline day. That's the thing, and they were like massively scrambling.
Never do it as well. They used to be known for getting their business done so early. Just was not a good summer for them. Let's finish off with some WSL, because that started this weekend. Back up, Henry. I know you were across this. There were some big storylines. There's some big results.
Yeah, great. Big, huge result for Everton. Brighton. They finished 11th last year, but went to Everton. Won that 2-1, made so many signings in the summer. Manchester United, I think we were wondering how well they'd do this year after losing Alessia Russo. They've made some great, actually, low-key made some brilliant signings. And to beat 2-1 Villa away, like Villa came 5th last year and are probably the biggest threat to the top sides at this moment in time. So Jill Roord score for Manchester City on her debut. She was a huge signing from Wolfsburg, who were last year's Champions League finalists, to get her through the door. Like City, I think by their standards, probably had a bit of a bad season last year, so not to lose out to Manchester United in the title race. But yeah, the big one really is Arsenal losing to Liverpool at home 1-0 in front of like a record crowd for a league game, which is wicked to see, 55,000 at the Emirates. But yeah, I mean, Miri Taylor finish. Pressure is on Eidevall, the Arsenal boss, because they didn't qualify for the Champions League, inexplicably losing to Paris FC on penalties at home. Like, the Champions League is such a big thing for the top WSL clubs at this moment in time, especially with some of the like world record bids that Arsenal have been throwing around. Like, these are serious. If you think they can get 65,000 people regularly turning up to watch their Champions League games, that's a huge money spinner.
Absolutely.
For the club too. And he's actually come out and asked the fans for more time and to be patient with him, which is quite an interesting kind of, it shows that he's beginning to feel the heat, and it shows that where the WSL has come, that like he's having to like come out and publicly say, look, people are beginning to recognise it's not going well, and like they are one of the big bullies of the WSL. They should be doing better than they are so far. And like we saw Chelsea get the job done 2-1 at Spurs this weekend. Like, they don't look like they're going to less up. And I'm not sure Arsenal are in a position at the moment, with the growth of the WSL around them, to really have these kind of clanging, to drop off. Because the second you drop off in that league, you will get caught. It's pretty brutal.
Absolutely. And he's also got quite a big profile now, because he's done so much co-commentary on the Women's World Cup, etc., and punditry, so everyone's aware of him. So yeah, under a bit of pressure is Eid Vidal. But guys, that has been Monday Vibes for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed the show and all the discussions and the breakdowns of those various results. I think it was a really fun weekend of action. Some controversy, as there always is, but lots of goals, lots of talking points. If you enjoyed this, get ready for, what are we doing tomorrow? We've got a top 10 tomorrow. We've got Team Talk returning on Wednesday. Going to be one hell of a show, guys. Going to be a great week. Catch you later. Bye-bye.